PRINCE2 activity starts with starting up a project, and the syllabus for SU starts with purpose, objectives and context. This is the first page that we've seen with syllabus references interleaved with the content that we need to study. So the syllabus area here is starting up a project. This is the foundation level that requires the purpose, objectives and context at level 2, which is understanding or comprehension of the components, and syllabus items 1, 2 and 3 are purpose, objective and context, and they come from manual section 12.1, 12.2 and 12.3. We've already covered one of the important quotes. Starting up a project's purpose is to ensure the prerequisites for initiation are in place by answering the question, do we have a viable and worthwhile project? During starting up a project, we must also define key roles, organisational theme, and define roles principle. We're also going to gather the information that defines the project's scope, decide the project's approach, and plan initiation. SU is as much about stopping poorly conceived projects from spending money as it is about anything else. Its context is that it is triggered by the project mandate. It is pre-project. The mandate may be so well formed, particularly if we're a project being initiated by a program, as to be suitable for use as the project initiation document, which is the definition of the investment and Appendix Entry A, number 20. Whatever we receive, the project manager should always check it. For example, has a feasibility study already been conducted, and if so, are its conclusions politically and technically sound? SU should be a quick and cheap do the minimum process when compared with the initiation stage. Our objectives when starting up are to ensure a business justification. As we'll see shortly, the executive creates an outline business case. Preparation for initiation is complete with plan for initiation stage and controls for initiation stage in place, and authority to commence initiation is secured against a scope that is defined well enough to write the project brief, Appendix A19. Possible approaches to how to deliver the project have been considered and one selected. The team for at least the initiation stage, and preferably the management team for the whole project's duration, is appointed, and assumptions about project's timescales, scope, acceptance criteria and constraints are realistic enough that the commitment of resources to initiation is a good idea. The primary management product created by starting up a project is the project brief, as documented in Appendix A19. Other management products created during starting up a project include the daily log, the project product description, the outline business case, and a few others, as we'll see shortly. The project brief is a key element of the controlled beginning. It evolves from the project mandate that triggered starting up a project, via discussion with corporate management if we're outside a program, or with program management if we're inside a program, and the project board members as they get appointed, particularly the user community, operations and maintenance staff, and potentially, if already involved, potential suppliers. The project brief must follow corporate standards and policies. It incorporates lessons learned from the lessons learned log, something else created in starting up a project, as we'll see very shortly. Its content will eventually form a fully defined project initiation document, which is used to judge the project's complete benefit to cost profile. The project brief, and note the quote for the exam, provides a full and firm foundation for the initiation stage. It evolves from the mandate and eventually is replaced or evolves into the project initiation document. Next, we'll look at the project brief in as much detail as is possible. The project brief can be any format you like, but it must describe, as succinctly as possible, the project's definition. That's made up of the context, the trigger for why we're doing the project and why we're doing it now, and the consequences that would flow from taking no action. The definition includes the outcome that is sought, the scope, including any exclusions, and for that outcome and scope, the acceptance criteria, as well as we can know them at this stage. Outcome should be specified so that it covers the 6 aspects of a project, namely time, cost, what is included and excluded, how we achieve conformance to specification and know that specification, knowing what might affect achievement, and the benefits that could be achieved. Note the quotes here: schedule, budget, scope, quality, risk and benefit performance goals of the project's objectives. Also constraints and tolerance limits. The project brief is entry 19 of Appendix A, and it includes the project product description, which has its own Appendix A template or product description. 21 is the project's product description, or the result that the project has to deliver. So outcome and scope are detailed in the project product description, which we'll see in detail later. For now, I'll mention it includes customer quality expectations, which are what the customer wants and may be contradictory and unachievable. And the project product description also includes acceptance criteria, which are an agreed, measurable and prioritized list of what must be present in the outputs for them to be acceptable to the users, operations and maintenance staff. Obviously, moving from customer quality expectations to acceptance criteria is a journey that takes time. So while it starts in starting up a project, it may proceed through initiation and in reality sometimes beyond, but that's always undesirable. Also determined in starting up a project and recorded in the A19 project brief is the approach or statement of, from the options available, this is how we will deliver and create the products of the project and achieve the required outcomes. So the project product description is what is to be achieved, and the project's approach is how we think we're going to deliver those. I think in reality this is often unrealistically premature, but that raises an important point that I must share with you. Any time you find yourself thinking, in the real world what I would do is, you have stepped off the pass the exam path. The exam demands you know and repeat and apply what is in the book. Of course that includes how to tailor and embed the method for your reality, but your opinion or reality is never wanted in the exam. And if different from what the official manual says, you'll lose marks. So, returning to what the project brief actually says, it says that we include an outline business case. The brief contains the outline business case produced by the executive, or possibly extracted from the mandate, which expresses the reason for the project and the selected business option. Initiation will expand the outline to be a full business case, and the activities of the managing a stage boundary process will refresh the business case at each end of stage. No record of business case or benefits would be complete without expression of risk. Assumptions and risks, i.e. threats and opportunities, and unknowns and uncertainties, are a material fact that needs to be passed to the project board when they use the project brief to make the decision as to whether to authorize initiation. Starting up a project process will also appoint people to allocated roles, and so the project brief should express their responsibilities, their levels of authority, and their reporting line in such a way that confirms that these people have agreed their roles and that corporate management or program management also agree the appointment of people to those roles. The project brief also includes all interfaces, that is, dependencies on or from the project, and a nice little get out of jail free card here. All other useful information capable of inclusion or relevant as a cross-reference. Remember that syllabus reference? The processes and roles in the life cycle of the project brief. Well, here they all are. In fact, the project brief starts life as the project mandate and ends life as the project initiation document. So the arrival of the mandate triggers the work of starting up a project, which produces the project brief, which is used by the project board to authorize initiation, and that in turn triggers the initiation stage, which produces the project initiation document, which is used by the project board to decide whether to authorize the project, and is then further used by all of the activities of both controlling the project through things like authorizing work and escalating issues, and handling the stage boundaries, and as a reference at the end when we finish in order to take stock of what we have achieved. We'll see this detailed map again later when we have covered much more of the content of the processes and their activities. For now, if you wish to study the details of this map, which is provided in the work files in legible resolution, then the content of this revision aid is for now reference to much that we have yet to cover. Studying it now will give you context for those later topics, but will introduce ideas I have not yet introduced to you. I definitely recommend that you study it as you finalize your revision. For now, I suggest that studying it is definitely useful, but don't expect to necessarily understand all of the references to things that we've yet to cover. Exploring the activities of starting up a project is a large undertaking, so we'll do this in more than one chunk. The syllabus reference for starting up a project for practitioner requires that we understand the activities and responsibilities within SU and how it applies to the 7 themes. Hopefully by now it's no surprise that everything starts with the project mandate, and equally from what we've just covered you'll know that that's a step on the way to the project initiation document, and you should recognize this layout. So the project mandate is P, produced by corporate management if we are outside of a program, or program management if we are within a program. My small joke here is that these folk often seem to us project managers to have their heads in the clouds. Arrival of the mandate causes corporate and program management to appoint one of their number as project executive. The appointment of the project executive should be based on the project's level of challenge and the executive's ability, political clout, interest, etc. The executive should be able to juggle balls of gold perfectly. They are the project's business representative and the decision maker. They are appointed by corporate and program management who define their job description. The executive should then appoint the project manager with corporate and program management's approval. So, project manager, job description and appointment, produced by the executive, approved by corporate and program management. Project managers should be expected to juggle hot potatoes and should also be expected that occasionally they'll drop a few. Both the executive and the project manager should review the mandate on receipt, and the project manager should immediately start a daily log, entry 7 in Appendix A. Whether you want to use a paper notebook, a SharePoint or a Basecamp site, it should start at the beginning of the PRINCE initiative. It's important that when we make these two key appointments, we confirm the job description and the time required to fulfill the roles with the appointees to get their agreement and their commitment. Throughout a project, it's crucial to use lessons from past experience to guide current activity. So as soon as the exec and project manager are in place, then they should review previous lessons from external and company internal sources. Lessons from past experience should be used to guide current activity. So as soon as the executive and project manager are in place, they should start the lessons log A14, produced by the project manager, reviewed by the executive, and populated with useful lessons from any and all sources. This log should be considered by every activity from now on during the whole of the rest of the project. The log may be populated by holding one or more workshops, as starting up a project assembles the project management team, and by individual contributions at any time. The team should also, as a minimum, repeat the capture of previous lessons during the initiation stage and at stage boundaries. Appointment of the executive and the project manager should cause the design and appointment of the rest of the project management team. The team should have defined roles, so that's the organisation theme and the defined roles principle. And we need defined roles, for example, for project assurance, the project board's eyes and ears, for team managers, we'll come to those shortly, project support, also senior suppliers, senior users, and the defined roles should express the authority, reporting lines, availability, and competencies needed. It's quite possible as we design the team, some people may not be available to be put into post. People may not necessarily have the competencies, so we may need to arrange training. Anything noteworthy that we encounter as we go should be recorded in the daily log. The manual says, so the exam expects, that any risks are recorded in the daily log, since the risk register won't be officially created until the initiation stage. So, appointment of the executive and the project manager and the review of the mandate will naturally lead to the consideration of, quote, who the right people in the right place with authority, responsibility and knowledge are, so that they can make timely decisions that represent the interests of the business, the users and the suppliers. To achieve the right representation might require a full stakeholder analysis be conducted, but our specific aim is to determine who should take which other project management team member roles, such as senior user, and if and how board members will delegate their project assurance duties, and so who has the time and the skills to carry those out. We need to decide any appointment of people to project support as a role to assist the project manager, and also who will be team members and team managers, or perhaps we don't yet know enough to make those appointments. Consideration of who will be appointed to senior supplier and the team manager roles will almost certainly evolve as the project approach is decided and subcontractors are appointed. Each role, from exec to team member, should have the required effort estimated, a role description agreed with the role holder and recorded in the project brief. That's a lot covered, so let's pause there. Then we can talk about the creation of the outline business case, the determination of the approach to delivering the project, and the creation of a stage plan for the initiation. In parallel and iteratively with building the team, the objectives need to be understood and explored so that a solid view of why underpins what and how. The source of this exploration is the project mandate, combined with the lessons log, corporate strategy and objectives, stakeholder interests, and particularly the stakeholder interests of any funding sources. The project's what is created by the project manager using content supplied by the senior user and the executive and captured in A21, the project product description. Produced by the project manager, reviewed by project assurance, it will be approved by the executive, senior user and senior supplier. Approval may be now or may be in another process, i.e. when we get to the end of starting up a project, in the authorizing initiation activity. The what sits alongside the why, which is drafted by the executive and created in formats and with content that accords to corporate standards and templates. The description recorded in the business case contains as much as is currently known. It's produced by the executive, reviewed by senior user, senior supplier, project manager and project assurance, particularly business project assurance, and approved by corporate or program management either now or when we get to the end of starting up a project. Both the why and the how, and indeed the who, are recorded as part of, contained within, the project brief. Anytime we see braces as part of the definition of an Appendix A template, that's expressing the lower level content that is within that template. In the activity to create the project product description, the project management team must capture customer quality expectations and translate where possible to acceptance criteria, must check the realism of timescales and record major milestones from the mandate or business case, and must also note any risks, still being recorded in the daily log, because officially the risk log will not be created until we get to the initiation stage. All the thinking, all the records like lessons log and results, such as who is assigned to which role, the corporate strategies and standards, and industry best practice, will inform the evaluation of options and the selection of an approach to how to deliver the project's required outcomes. The approach is described by the manual paragraph A19.5 as being one of either taking a supplier's standard off-the-shelf solution or creating something bespoke, which is an English word meaning custom-made. Approach includes deciding whether to acquire, create, or implement using contractors or in-house staff who are already on the payroll. And approach also covers whether to design from new or adapt and modify something existing. This all depends on customer and supplier preference and standards, on development life cycles chosen, and through life operational and maintenance needs, plus consideration of training needs and health, safety, security and environmental needs. In establishing the approach, we may identify additional roles or change the boundaries between roles of project management team members, and this updates the project brief, which is produced by the project manager, reviewed by assurance, that is assurance of both senior user, senior supplier and the executive, reviewed elsewhere specifically by them when we get to the directing of project activities, and approved by the executive, again in the directing of project activities. The brief is a combination of many elements. It may be a document or a set of references to many sources. It is in total an agreed, quote, commonly understood, well-defined start point for the project at the initiation stage. Armed with as clear a view of objectives and the project management team as it has been possible to gather in the time and resources allotted so far, the initiation stage must be planned, scheduled, costed, and its control regime decided. This is a plan the planning step in accordance with PRINCE2's planning theme, to avoid being, quote, aimless and unstructured during initiation. If initiation looks large and complex, then the initiation stage's controls may adopt PRINCE2's controlling a stage and managing product delivery processes. Also, a project in a program may have predefined timescales for initiation that the scheduling must accommodate. Whatever the choices, an initiation stage plan plus reporting and control procedure is produced by the project manager, reviewed by project assurance, and very shortly will be approved by the executive, senior user and senior supplier, either directly or through their project assurance delegates. Also sent to the project board alongside the initiation stage plan will be a request to initiate the project, as well as the project brief to describe the project's potential merits. The directing of project activities are a little different from all other processes. They are discrete and occur at the end of the project manager's activity, rather than being integrated, like, for example, those of starting up a project. Completion of the project brief and the initiation stage plan are the conditions required for the project board's first, quote, official action. Of course, the project board have been very involved in defining the desired outcome in the project product description and the approach in the project approach contained within the project brief. The first official action is to respond as a project board to the request to initiate a project. The purpose of this project board session is to decide if the idea that started in the project mandate has enough merit to invest the time and effort to create a well enough researched business case and project plan to inform a full investment decision. The decision may be made in a formal meeting or in an informal manner, but is an official decision requiring participation of all board members and must produce some, quote, documented instruction to be given by the executive to the project manager. Project assurance may do the detailed review of the plans and the brief. Recall particularly the need for business assurance that belongs to the executive, whether delegated or not. Whether done by people with separate delegated project assurance duties or the project board members themselves, the project brief and its contained elements such as milestones, outcome, customer quality expectations and acceptance criteria, business case as far as the outline goes, the project approach, the role holders' job descriptions with latest role definitions, the initiation stage plan and the recorded risks and the stage plan's contained reporting and control regimes are confirmed for completeness, accuracy and viability. A few other quotable notes are that DP1, otherwise known as Authorizing Initiation or 13.4.1, formally confirms appointment of the project management team to roles that they have agreed and obtains and secures a commitment from corporate and program management of the resources needed to complete initiation. Also, that the senior supplier may not yet be in post, so will not participate in the approval of the project brief. As part of the official action, no matter how informally conducted, the project board must also make the wider stakeholder community aware of the project and request logistical support, which may be for things such as office space or other facilities. Authorize initiation provides the project manager permission to proceed within tolerances against the approved brief and the approved stage plan. Note a last quote. The project, rather than PRINCE2, now starts. Now that I've taken you through the activities of starting up a project and the foundation exam format, try the foundation questions for SU in the workbook. The workbook's table of contents will direct you to the questions, their answers, and the explanations of the correct answers. These questions are from the official APMG practice exams, and our use of them at this stage is more about becoming familiar with question phrasing and style and how they reflect what we have just covered, than with your ability to recall what we've covered. On just a single pass, that would require excellent memory. The reference material in the workbook is available to review to create improved recall. You will also see these questions again when you try the 75-question full mock exams, and you will see very close parallels to these questions in the real exam. Some of the wording may have changed, but the content will be essentially identical. After you've tried the foundation questions, I'll introduce you to the practitioner exam and then the points on this slide for the practitioner exam leading to practitioner practice questions.